I was the deep-pocketed fool who got dumped, yet the whole city saw me as a magnanimous, devoted man. At my own engagement party, I introduced my ex-fiancée, the one whose heart had already strayed, to a room full of socialites. I even poured her and her new beau, a poor student, a drink. When I later found them in the garden complaining that they couldn't afford to cross the Harrison group, I calmly reassured them that it was just youthful ignorance. This facade, so respectable it was almost saintly, convinced everyone I'd moved on. What they didn't know was that at that very moment, I had just taken control of a $1.5 billion investment from my father, holding the foster group's last breath of oxygen in my hand. Because rather than making a scene, I much prefer watching someone's illusion of having chosen true love get shredded by reality, piece by piece. My fiancée fell in love with a poor student she was sponsoring. She was adamant about breaking off our engagement, ignoring all pleas from our friends and family. My father's blood pressure shot through the roof, and my mother nearly collapsed and had to be rushed to the hospital. Overnight, the Harrisons became the laughingstock of high society. But what no one saw coming was that we began planning our counterattack immediately. My mother pulled out her phone right then and there. "I'll find you a new match. How about the most beautiful woman in Summit Hills?" My father's voice was ice. "Cancel all our partnerships and cut off that $1.5 billion in financial support to her family." A small smile touched my lips. "Why don't you let me handle both of those things personally?" 3 months later, I threw a gala, ostensibly to announce my engagement to the #1 beauty in Summit Hills. The guest list was a who's who of society, including many friends I'd grown up with. I've been so focused on business these past few years that I rarely attended these events and had grown distant from many of them. I used the opportunity to catch up, and they all lamented the end of my relationship with Olivia Foster, telling me how sorry they were for me. I just offered them a faint smile. It's all in the past. If she's found happiness, then I'm happy for her. My friends told me I was a fool, that I shouldn't be so forgiving. But I knew that my father would soon be pulling the plug on the foster group's funding completely. For now, all I had to do was play the part of the gracious, benevolent man. Suddenly, the ballroom doors swung open. A familiar figure stood silhouetted in the harsh light, stepping into view. My gaze sharpened. It was my ex-fiancée and her new boyfriend. The atmosphere instantly became tense and awkward. People around me tried to act casual, offering me empty words of comfort. Hushed whispers rippled through the crowd. What is she doing here? The nerve. Is that the social climbing charity case next to her? He's nothing compared to Lucas. I gave a casual wave of my hand, signaling to my friends not to worry. Composing my features into a polite, polished smile, I walked directly toward Olivia Foster and graciously extended my hand. "Olivia, welcome. I do apologize for the poor hospitality. I should have arranged for someone to greet you." Olivia hesitated for a moment before taking my hand. I turned to the crowd and announced magnanimously, "This is Miss Olivia Foster of the Foster Group, a face I'm sure you all recognize. And this is her boyfriend, Ryan Ellis, a former recipient of her charity who is still a student." For a moment, Olivia couldn't tell if I had genuinely moved on or if I was deliberately humiliating her in public. After exchanging a few pleasantries, she quickly pulled Ryan Ellis over to an empty table in the corner. I ambled over with a few friends in tow. "Miss Foster, you seem a little on edge tonight. We're all old friends here. Why not join us for a few drinks?" Olivia clearly wanted to refuse, but before she could open her mouth, one of my friends chimed in. "Come on, Miss Foster. You wouldn't refuse Lucas this small gesture, would you?" The reason Olivia was here tonight was simple. In the 2 years since I took over the Harrison Group, the company had expanded at a phenomenal rate, becoming one of the most powerful commercial empires in Summit Hills. The Foster Group, in contrast, was in dire straits, its situation worsening by the day. If my father hadn't kept propping them up for the sake of our family's alliance, the Foster Group would have gone under years ago. Early last year, their funding completely dried up. If my father hadn't stepped in with a $1.5 billion bailout, the Foster Group name itself would have likely vanished. The Foster's biggest fear now was that my father would pull that funding. 3 months had passed without a move from him, but panic was already setting in throughout their family. One by one, senior employees at the foster group were jumping ship to us at Harrison. Olivia's purpose for being here tonight was obvious. First, to gauge my attitude, and second, to smooth things over between her family and mine. Under the circumstances, she had no choice but to force herself to drink glass after glass. As Olivia downed several glasses of red wine, the expression on Ryan Ellis's face grew darker. I raised my glass and gestured toward him. Olivia immediately grabbed his arm, whispering urgently, "Ryan, the Fosters owe everything to Lucas's family. You need to toast him." But Ryan Ellis, who came from nothing, knew nothing of the business world's etiquette. He was lost in his own feelings. He violently shook off Olivia's hand and turned to walk away. Olivia rushed to apologize to me. "Lucas, Ryan hasn't been feeling well lately. Please forgive him." One of my friends, standing nearby, was furious. "Who the hell does Ryan Ellis think he is?" Lucas offers him a toast, and he throws a tantrum. I held up a hand to quiet him, my smile effortless. "Let it go. It's normal for a kid to be immature." I added slowly, "Besides, the Harrison Group has a reputation to uphold. Lucas Harrison, can't be seen squabbling over something so trivial. It would be bad for my image." Olivia bowed repeatedly, her eyes filled with apology, then rushed out after him. I've never been fond of these events, so after a few words to calm my friends, I stepped out into the back garden for some air. And there, in a corner of the garden, I came across Olivia, trying to placate Ryan Ellis. Her voice was laced with panic. "Ryan, we can't afford to cross the Harrison Group. You have to understand the position I'm in." But Ryan, having just latched onto a wealthy family, was full of arrogance. The great Foster family, afraid of the Harrisons? You gotta be kidding. The Fosters would be better off without them. I couldn't help but chuckle at his sheer arrogance and ignorance. Historically, he wasn't entirely wrong. The Foster Group was a much older institution than ours. In terms of legacy, the Fosters' history was long enough to build 3 Harrison Groups. In comparison, the Harrison Group was a new entity, built from the ground up by my father's generation. But today, the Harrison Group was powerful enough to shape the future of Summit Hills. The Foster Group, on the other hand, had been in decline since Olivia's father took over. Its management was a mess, its structure outdated and rigid. It was a brand name living on past glory, but in reality, it was almost completely hollowed out. Mr. Foster's original plan was to have me take over his company after the marriage. That possibility was now practically zero. They were barely hanging on as it was. The moment my father pulled our funding, the Foster Group wouldn't just fail to recover. It would be instantly crushed by its massive debt. As I drew closer, Olivia grew visibly flustered. "Lucas, please don't take what he said seriously. Ryan didn't mean it." Watching my ex-fiancée, so polite and formal now, rushing to make excuses for another man, was admittedly strange for a second. But I was long past caring about such things. I actually found myself reassuring her. "Ryan is new to this world. He doesn't know the rules yet. Just give him time, he'll learn." Olivia stared, clearly surprised by my response. But Ryan's face was a mask of fury. He yelled right at me. "Lucas Harrison, stop pretending to be the good guy. Don't think I don't know you're still not over Olivia. She loves me now." Before I could even respond, he stormed out of the hall. I could only turn to Olivia with a helpless smile. The younger generation is certainly more entertaining than us business types. So much drama, it's almost fun to watch. She finally seemed to relax a bit, replying with a playful pout. "You're hardly just a simple businessman. You're not a normal businessman. You're the alpha type who controls everything." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, you think so highly of me, Olivia." She gave a bitter smile. "I'm the one who didn't appreciate you back then. How have you been?" I gave her the same gentle smile I always used to. "Me? I suppose I'm doing a little better than you are." Just then, the MC's voice echoed from the ballroom's sound system. I glanced at her. "The program is starting. We should head back." Tonight was the night I planned to make a major announcement, and I couldn't let Olivia derail my schedule. As we walked back to the hall, one behind the other, a smile played on my lips. The show was about to begin. Back in the main hall, I took my place at the center of the stage. Jenny Sullivan, universally acknowledged as the most beautiful woman in Summit Hills, descended the grand staircase in a stunning couture gown. She glided to my side and gently took my arm. I looked at her with a tenderness in my eyes that ran deeper than anything I ever felt for Olivia. I gave Jenny's hand a reassuring pat, then turned to our guests. Everyone, I would like to formally introduce my fiancée, Jenny Sullivan. Jenny smiled, a little shyly, and waved to the crowd. It's a pleasure to meet you all. Thunderous applause filled the hall. So much better than that Olivia, isn't she? Seriously, Olivia was living the dream and didn't even know it. Lucas Harrison could have anyone. I never understood what he saw in her. I cleared my throat. We're already planning the wedding, and invitations will be sent out soon. We hope you will all honor us with your presence. Amid the congratulations and festive air, I lowered my eyes and found Olivia in the crowd. Just as I'd expected, the color was draining from her face, her expression like she'd just been struck. And sure enough, before I had even made it home, a message from Olivia popped up on my phone. Lucas, you're getting married so soon. I wish you happiness. My expression was placid as I adjusted my glasses and slowly typed a reply. I can't look after you anymore, so you'll have to learn to take care of yourself. Remember your bad back. Use a heating pad on damp days. And your migraines, make sure you always have medicine by your bed. I had written that message long ago and saved it in my drafts. After I hit send, the screen remained quiet. She didn't reply for a long time. I imagined her reading it, slowly remembering just how much I used to cater to her every need, how much I spoiled her. I put out of my mind, went home, showered, and went to bed. The next morning, the first thing I saw on my phone was a long message Olivia had sent in the middle of the night. I was wrong. If I could do it all over again, I would have married you without a second thought. But it's too late now, isn't it? I stretched, feeling a deep satisfaction as everything fell into place exactly as I planned. I texted back, let's just let the past be the past. We've known each other too long. Even if we can't be married, we can still be friends, right? She must have been up all night because she replied instantly. Yes, of course. We'll always be good friends. I laughed and shook my head. Olivia was so easily manipulated. It was no wonder a guy like Ryan could twist her around his little finger. Perhaps I had been too good to her, too sincere, and that's what made her this way. A woman like her would follow anyone who whispered a few sweet words in her ear. As I thought about this, I put down my phone and looked over at Jenny, sleeping peacefully beside me. Her face was serene, her breathing even. It was a calming sight. In every way, from family background to looks, she was leagues above Olivia, and yet her spirit was purer and kinder. We had only known each other for 3 months, but being with her felt comfortable and easy in a way I'd never experienced before. Maybe this is what it feels like to be with the right person. I later heard that after the gala, Ryan and Olivia had a massive fight. He was convinced she was still hung up on me. Before, Olivia had been completely under his spell. But after that night, it would have been hard for her not to think of me. After all, I was the one who had always chased her. She probably harbored the naive belief that if she ever decided to come back, I'd be waiting right where she left me. But hearing that I was getting married, and then looking at the immature boy in front of her, how could Olivia not be shaken? 2 days later, I was in my office when my secretary knocked. Miss Foster is here to see you. I smiled. Send her in. Olivia walked in, looking a little awkward. Am I disturbing you? I closed the file I was working on. Not at all. I was just finishing up. Then I asked, how about I take you to your favorite restaurant later? Olivia froze, clearly surprised. I scratched my head, feigning embarrassment. Sorry, old habit. I forgot for a second that you have a new boyfriend. She quickly recovered. It's okay. I'm free, actually. We can just catch up as old friends. I looked down, adjusting my glasses to hide the smile that was forming on my lips. I knew she would agree. When she broke our engagement, she had turned her own family upside down. She fought everyone, defying her entire family to be with Ryan. But the Foster elders knew better than anyone what a catastrophic choice that was for their family business. Olivia was their only daughter, spoiled rotten since birth. No matter how furious they were, They could never bring themselves to truly punish her. Ryan, however, wasn't so lucky. The elders blamed him for everything, claiming he had seduced Olivia with his schemes and manipulated her into making such a foolish decision. They made it clear that Ryan would never receive a single share of company stock, nor would he ever hold a position within the foster group. To the outside world, he was just a kept man who had struck gold. Only he knew how miserable his life had become. He was smart enough to get a job at a decent company and work his way up. But now, because of me, no reputable firm in Summit Hills would touch him. He was completely dependent on Olivia, his entire lifestyle funded by her. If Olivia ever left him, he would be left with nothing. When you looked at it that way, his anxiety, his temper, his paranoia, it all made sense. The real problem was that he drowned his sorrows in alcohol and started sleeping with bar girls. All for a moment of cheap pleasure. Olivia, it seemed, was completely oblivious. Her mind was focused solely on getting closer to me again. Looking at her hopeful face, only one thought crossed my mind. What a fool. Thank God I never married her. While my father had made the decision to pull our investment from the foster group, I had personally asked for the authority to execute the plan, and he had gladly handed it over. I had been waiting for the perfect moment to act. And now, that moment had finally arrived. Once Olivia received the photos of Ryan cheating, I could use the ensuing scandal as the perfect justification for pulling all of our funding. When that happened, I hoped she wouldn't think me cruel. After all, she was the one who broke our pact. She was the one who sent my father's blood pressure soaring and nearly gave my mother a heart attack. I was simply returning the favor. Finishing my last task, I stretched and glanced at Olivia, still waiting for me on the sofa. She was engrossed in her phone, but looked up at the movement. All done. I nodded. You must be exhausted, she said softly. I never realized how hard you work. She added, you know, you look very handsome when you're working. I gave a wry smile. In the past, I always made sure I was perfectly put together before seeing you, so you'd never see me looking tired. I always wanted to be at my best for you. I used to clear my schedule just to spend a little more time with her, but I never got an ounce of appreciation for it. Now that she wanted something from me, she was suddenly gentle and considerate. She would never know that for the 2 hours she sat waiting, I was in my office finalizing the arrangements for severing all ties with the foster group. I put on my jacket, and before I could say a word, Olivia was on her feet. Ready to go? I nodded and told my driver to bring the car around. We rode in an oppressive silence, which was finally broken by the ringing of her phone. She instinctively moved to decline the call, but I placed a hand on her wrist. We're not even close to the restaurant. Go ahead, answer it. She hesitated for a second, then whispered, okay. The moment the call connected, her entire demeanor changed. Panic washed over her face. I knew exactly what was happening. The news about Ryan had finally reached her. After she hung up, she frantically tried to call him, but he didn't pick up. She gripped her phone, her brow furrowed in distress. I feigned concern. Is something wrong? My question seemed to snap her back to the present. She quickly collected herself. Lucas, I don't think I could do dinner tonight. I'll make it up to you. I smiled warmly. Of course. Go take care of it. Do you need the driver to take you somewhere? She seemed flustered, quickly waving her hands. No, you can just drop me here. I'll get a cab. I didn't press the issue, just nodded for the driver to pull over. As we drove away, I watched her in the rearview mirror, standing on the curb, frantically dialing her phone. From the look on her face, she still wasn't getting an answer. I pulled out my own phone and made a call. Blow it up. I want it all over the news tonight. And tomorrow morning, send the divestment proposal to the foster group. With the Harrison Group's influence, the story would be all over Summit Hills within the hour. By then, it would be too late for Ryan to do anything about it, even if he got on his knees and begged. My driver asked cautiously, where to next, Mr. Harrison? I gazed out the window. Let's go get Jenny. The truth was, I never had any intention of having dinner with Olivia. I had arranged every detail before she even arrived at my office, including the precise moment at 6:30 when she would learn about Ryan's infidelity. The reservation at that restaurant was never for her. It was for Jenny and me. Olivia had merely stumbled into a pre-planned slot in my schedule. I just wanted to see the look on her face when she found out the truth. As we pulled into Jenny's neighborhood, I saw her jogging toward the car, happy as a fawn. The moment she got in, she excitedly took my hand and planted a light kiss on my cheek. "Thank you for making time for me when you're so busy." I was taken aback for a second. That kind of spontaneous, affectionate gesture was something I'd never gotten from Olivia. Olivia would have taken such a gesture for granted, accepting it as her due. But here was a girl 100 times better than her, who was genuinely grateful for a small bit of my time. It was the difference in how they were raised. Olivia was spoiled, arrogant, and self-centered, convinced the world revolved around her. I stroked Jenny's hair. "I'm sorry I haven't been around much lately. Once things settle down, how about we take a trip abroad?" Jenny's eyes lit up. "Yes, absolutely. I want to go to the Maldives." A truly healthy relationship, I realized, is about mutual understanding and bringing positive energy into each other's lives. The more time I spent with Jenny, the more I saw how worthless my efforts for Olivia had been. Once we were seated at the restaurant, I sent a text to my driver, telling him to swing by Olivia's place and see what was happening. A few minutes later, he sent me a video. In the video, Olivia was on her knees outside the iron gates of her family's mansion. After a long wait, her parents finally emerged. The moment Mr. Foster saw her, he unleashed a torrent of abuse. "Your mother and I spoiled you rotten, and this is the result. You picked up a piece of useless trash. Our relationship with the Harrisons was already strained because you got involved with that scum. And now that Ryan scandal is public, our stock has plummeted. The second the Harrisons pull their funding, we're finished. The company will go bankrupt. Have we made your life too easy for the last 20 years? All for a troublemaking, social climbing pretty boy. She had thrown her entire life away." Mr. Foster grew more enraged with every word, until he suddenly raised his hand and struck Olivia hard across the face. "Call that bastard Ryan right now, and tell him to get his ass over here." Olivia was sobbing uncontrollably. "Dad, I can't reach him." That only made her father angrier. "So he's a coward now? Hides when the going gets tough? He was so full of himself before." Speechless, Olivia could only dial Ryan's number again and again. I had just finished the video when my own phone rang. It was Olivia. "Lucas, did you see the news? Please, you have to help me. Help the Foster group, please." In the past, her tears would have made me give in. But things were different now. I no longer loved her. More importantly, this was all my doing. I glanced at the sweet, innocent Jenny beside me. "I'm sorry, Olivia. I can't help you. I have to think about the future of the Harrison group." She sobbed, refusing to give up. "I know it was my fault, Lucas. I'll do anything. Just tell me what. I'll break up with Ryan tomorrow. I swear, please." My tone remained even. "I'm currently having dinner with my girlfriend. Someone will deliver the divestment contract to the Foster group tomorrow morning. This is my personal time, Miss Foster. I suggest you stop bothering me." I thought that would be the end of it. But the next morning, as I arrived at the office, Olivia was waiting for me, her face a mask of desperation. The moment I stepped out of the car, she rushed forward and grabbed my arm. I shook her off. "Miss Foster, please mind your behavior in public. If you have something to say, we can say it upstairs." Seeing a slight crack in my composure, she followed me timidly. The second we were inside my office, she dropped to her knees before me. I didn't even bother to look at her. "Is this some kind of pity ploy?" She shook her head frantically. "No, Lucas, I just came to beg you to forgive me." A cold smirk played on my lips as I walked to the sofa and sat, looking down at her. "You weren't acting like this when you broke our engagement. You only learn humility when you need something from me." She raised a hand and slapped her own face hard. "It's all my fault. I didn't appreciate you. I was so stupid. Just help me, and I'll do anything you ask. I'll be your slave." I laughed coldly. "That won't be necessary, Miss Foster. Please leave. I have a girlfriend now. See yourself out." When she didn't move, I simply called security and had her removed. For the next several days, she waited outside my office building like clockwork. I would walk past, giving her nothing more than a passing glance. Meanwhile, the divestment agreement I had sent to the Foster group was returned, unopened. I knew what their game was. They were holding out for the $5 million penalty fee for breach of contract. A few days later, I drafted a new mandatory divestment agreement and sent it over, along with a check for $5 million. This time, there was no way for them to ignore it. They had to face reality. The small delay had no effect on my plans. The foster group was already hundreds of millions in the red. $5 million was a drop in the bucket. At the same time, Olivia became a pariah in our social circle. Some people were genuinely defending my honor, while others were simply siding with power. Whatever their reasons, the result was the same. No one was willing to help the Fosters. When Ryan found out Olivia had been begging me to take her back, he lost it. He ignored her parents' rebukes, stormed over to her place, and demanded she stop dreaming and just marry him and have his children. Given Olivia's nature, she of course refused. But breaking up with him now would be an admission that the cheating scandal was true. If that happened, she and the entire foster group would become the biggest laughingstock in Summit Hills. Trapped with no good options, Olivia had no choice but to agree. A few months later, I heard that Olivia and Ryan had officially gotten married. But for someone who always loved romance and grand gestures, there was no proposal, no wedding. I did some asking around and learned that Ryan was banking on the idea that even a failing old money family was better than nothing. He knew that if he and Olivia split, no other socialite in town would give him the time of day. So he resorted to a disgusting trick. He waited for a night when Olivia was drunk and despondent, and he intentionally got her pregnant while she was passed out. Olivia was already frail. If she terminated the pregnancy, she might never be able to conceive again. She was trapped. She had no choice but to marry him. But Ryan had no idea how the real world worked. That old saying about a starved camel being bigger than a horse only works in fairy tales. The reality was that once the foster group collapsed, they would be saddled with hundreds of millions in debt. The banks would seize their assets, creditors would hound them relentlessly, and the entire family would become fugitives. In fact, even without the baby, the shrewd Mr. Foster likely would have forced the marriage just to save face. But the social climbing Ryan was still lost in his fantasy, believing he had finally made it into the upper crust. He squandered the money Olivia had given him, throwing lavish parties for his low-life friends and keeping a string of girlfriends for various bars. He was completely out of control. He had no clue that once that money was gone, there was no more to be had, even if Olivia wanted to give it to him. In fact, he probably had more liquid cash at his disposal than the entire foster group. If he had any sense, that money would have been enough to set him, Olivia, and their child up for a comfortable life. But he blew it all on luxury cars, mansions, and other women. I sighed internally. His stupidity was leading him straight to his own ruin. A few months later, Jenny and I had our wedding. Olivia came, heavily pregnant. She sat silently in a corner at the very back of the hall and watched the entire ceremony. When I happened to glance her way, I saw that her eyes were red, glistening with unshed tears. During the toasts, I took my glass and walked directly to her table. Long time no see. I raised my glass to her. I owe you a toast. If it weren't for your decisiveness back then, I might not be this happy today, and I never would have met a wonderful girl like Jenny. A tear slipped down her cheek. Congratulations, she choked out. Whether it was from all she had been through or the fact that she couldn't wear makeup while pregnant, she looked as if she had aged a decade. She was gaunt, and her clothes were a far cry from the glamorous style she used to wear. Looking at her, I couldn't help but think that different choices lead to different fates. One wrong step, and everything that follows is wrong. After the wedding, I took Jenny to Maui for our honeymoon, a place she had been dreaming of for ages. But as luck would have it, the first person we saw at the airport was Ryan, and the woman on his arm was not Olivia. The moment he spotted me, he charged over, his fist raised. "Lucas Harrison, can't you leave me alone? Are you following me?" I caught his arm easily. "Do you really think I have time to follow you? More importantly, don't you dare ruin my wife's honeymoon." The woman with Ryan tugged on his sleeve, and he reluctantly backed down, muttering curses as he walked away. Thankfully, we didn't see him again for the rest of the trip. Jenny and I visited 11 cities on our honeymoon. For me, it felt like a long overdue vacation. We were gone for 3 months. When we got back, my parents were waiting for us with a huge barbecue spread on the table. The moment they saw us, my mother's face lit up in a huge grin, and my father rushed forward to take Jenny's bags. It was clear they couldn't have been happier with their new daughter-in-law. During dinner, my mother kept piling food onto Jenny's plate until it was a small mountain. I teased her, "Mom, now that you have a daughter-in-law, have you forgotten all about your son?" All three of them burst out laughing. My mother looked at Jenny fondly. "Jenny, I always wanted a daughter. This is your home now, and I'll treat you like you're my own. And if this rascal ever gives you any trouble, you just let me know. I'll be the first one to set him straight." As I listened to them chat, I learned something new. My father and Jenny's father had known each other for years. They had served in the army together when they were young and had been best friends in their unit. Over drinks one night, they had made a pact that if they ever had the chance, they would join their families by marrying their children to each other. Who would have thought that after all these years, and after everything I had been through, I would be the one to fulfill my father's old promise by a twist of fate? A few days later, I met up with some friends for dinner. They told me that Olivia had given birth to a daughter. Apparently, when Ryan heard it was a girl, he was furious. He started calling Olivia a useless hag who can only pop out girls, and taunted her constantly. Meanwhile, the foster group was on its last legs, about to go under. The stress caused Olivia's emotions to spiral, and she fell into a severe postpartum depression. But Ryan showed no concern. Instead, he just kept pressuring her for money she no longer had. She couldn't even afford to hire a nurse to help with the baby. As my friends talked, I had a sudden flash of memory. Olivia, her eyes sparkling, asking me one night, "Do you want a son or a daughter someday?" I told her I wanted a daughter because watching her grow up would be like watching a little version of her all over again. Now she had a daughter, and it had nothing to do with me. Instead, she had to endure the most vile insults from the man beside her. Honestly, I didn't feel much sympathy. Mostly just a cold detachment. She had made her choices, and she was living with the consequences. I have no doubt that Olivia was regretting her decision with every fiber of her being. If she had stayed with me, the foster group would be thriving with our support. She would be resting in a luxurious suite, attended to by private nurses and maids, showered with affection by my entire family. She knew all this, but she was the one who made the choice. But what Olivia would never know was that I never had any intention of marrying her. Years ago, when the Harrison Group was just a startup, the Fosters were at the height of their power. Old Man Foster was a ruthless man who took every opportunity to crush my father's burgeoning company. He nearly drove us into bankruptcy several times. But my father was resilient, and he managed to pull us through each time. By the time I was 20, the Harrison Group was finally on solid ground. It was then that I met Olivia and fell for her, but her father shut it down immediately. He called me a rotten apple, a social climber who wasn't good enough for his precious daughter. From that moment on, a seed was planted in my mind. One day, I would be the one to bring the foster group crashing down. For years, I waited for the right opportunity. It finally arrived when Olivia herself decided to sponsor a poor, ambitious student named Ryan. It happened at our high school centennial celebration, where we were honored as distinguished alumni. Together, Olivia and I saw Ryan, then a senior, being bullied by a group of older boys. He was cornered, wearing a faded, worn-out uniform. We learned his story: parents dead, raised by his grandparents, poor, but a straight-A student. My first instinct was to help him. I planned to fund his education and then give him a job at the Harrison Group. But Olivia, eager for a chance to play the benevolent benefactor, insisted that she be the one to sponsor him. And once Ryan got a taste of that life, he quickly forgot where he came from and set his sights on seducing his benefactor. I was young, but I wasn't an idiot. I saw the way they looked at each other. I knew what was happening. I just chose to pretend that I didn't. For years, I played the fool, all while secretly pulling the strings, turning the unsuspecting Ryan into a pawn in my game. And now, everything had played out exactly as I planned, even more perfectly than I could have imagined. 6 months passed. Olivia's postpartum depression went untreated, and she eventually suffered a complete psychotic break. Ryan, tired of her craziness, had her committed to a psychiatric hospital. The foster group, crushed by its debt, officially declared bankruptcy. Unable to cope, Olivia's mother took her own life. It was only then that Ryan finally understood what a fool he had been. He tried to find a legitimate job, but quickly learned that no company would risk hiring someone who had crossed the Harrisons. He was blacklisted everywhere. He managed to find work as a waiter, but after living a life of luxury, he couldn't handle being poor again. Before long, he drove to the coast and threw himself into the ocean. By the time they found his body, it was badly decomposed. When the police searched the home he had shared with Olivia, they found their child on the floor. It had starved to death. Sometime later, I visited Olivia in the hospital. The moment she saw me, she lunged, grabbing onto my clothes. "Lucas, you came for me. Where's our baby? Where's our child?" I said nothing as I watched her rave, lost in her delusions. One moment she was wailing, the next she was laughing. "Lucas, you've come to take me home, haven't you? I'll go pack my things. I'll be ready in a minute." I just shook my head as if I hadn't heard her. But out of some small flicker of pity, I settled all of her outstanding medical bills and told the hospital to put all future expenses on my account. A week later, the hospital called. Olivia had slipped away from a nurse, made her way to the roof, and jumped. She left a letter for me. The nurse began to read it over the phone. "I made a terrible mistake in this life. In the next one, I promise I'll love you right." I cut her off. "You don't have to read it. Just throw the letter away. Who knows if there's a next life? Even if there is, I have no desire to meet Olivia again." I hung up the phone, walked into the kitchen, and wrapped my arms around Jenny from behind as she cooked. "What's wrong?" she asked softly. I feigned fatigue, just tired from looking at documents. I held her closer. "Jenny, I am so incredibly lucky to have met you. If there's a next life and a life after that, I will marry you in every single one." Jenny turned in my arms, hugged me back, and stood on her toes to kiss my forehead. "Okay," she whispered. "Every step in life is a choice, and every choice." When his fiancée, Victoria Foster, leaves him for a poor student she sponsors, tycoon Lucas Harrison masterfully plays the role of a gracious ex. In reality, it's a calculated revenge plot. He announces a new engagement to the beautiful Jenny, luring Victoria into a false sense of security with feigned friendship. He then orchestrates a scandal to expose the student's infidelity, using it as justification to pull the critical funding propping up the Foster family business. This action triggers their complete financial ruin and a tragic spiral of death and despair for the entire family, fulfilling Lucas's long-held grudge against Victoria's father.